What would you do to survive? I mean, what really would you do to survive? Have you really thought about that? I think it's something that a lot of people just kind of make a statement about, like, I'd do anything, to survive or to feed my kid. Now, some won't. Some just want to die, but that's not the average person, right? So I want to talk about that today and what that really means. Good morning and welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith, and before I start on this, because something was in the news yesterday that I wanted to talk about that really brings us home. And first, to remind you that this and all my videos are brought to you by the Stonemont series, my books, the complete collection of the best plan how to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a total collapse of everything. I will tell you more about them in a little bit, in a few minutes, and how to get them if you haven't read them. If you haven't read them, you should. It'll be eye-opening for you. Yesterday, I was going through the news aggregators, and something popped out that really drew my attention. And it was something that Christy Nome had said. You all know who Christy Nome is, right? And she said that 1 in 6 of the Maui fire victims had to trade sexual favors for basic supplies. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about that. This is Hawaii. This is America. This is a disaster that you know how we think everybody's pulling together and helping each other out and everything like that, right? And FEMA should be there and everything, and yet 1 in 6, she said, victims had to trade sexual favors for basic supplies. Okay, I'm going to take a sip at this. While I want you to allow your imagination, don't get too deep into it, don't get sinful, but allow your imagination to reveal to you what that means. Would you do that? Most people will say, well, I don't know what most people will say. Some people will say, well, I would never do that. I would never do that. Other people will say, yeah, I'd do whatever it took to survive or to feed my kids, and all. And to be honest, until you're there, you don't know. For the most part, there might be some that have a pretty good idea and would do what they say, but for the most part, life teaches us that we don't know what we would do until we're in a situation. We can hope that we'll do a certain thing. We can train to do a certain thing. We can think that we will do a certain thing simply because sitting in our easy chair or sitting at home, we go down through the ethic and moral chain and decide what would be the ethical and moral thing to do, and so we say, well, we would do that. Well, take it to the point where you're starving to death, or you have some basic needs you can't get, or your children are starving, and that has an effect. In one of my books, I forget which one, there's a scene. I write a scene about a man who is going to allow himself to be cannibalized just to give his 2 daughters a chance at survival, a chance of a few more days of life, in which case, in which they may be able to escape the situation that they're in and survive. Another sip. Most people have not had the experience of seeing life at its worst. Some of you have. Most haven't, and there's nothing wrong with that, because life at its worst is nothing you should want to see. And if you've been able to avoid that, which the vast majority of people have, good, because I'll tell you, there are some things that you can live a good quality life without knowing about and without seeing. Simple as that. And those who have seen those things will tell you that. Life at its worst is people at their worst, and people at their worst are just pure demonic and evil. And they will think up things that the normal person could not even begin in their wildest imaginations to imagine. So the danger is to think that you, as a normal person, would be able to project what the worst might be in a bad situation. Now in Maui, we weren't even talking about the collapse of the world like is in my books. Well, we were talking about fires and people needing certain things and people, offering up their themselves, as payment for I don't know what they just said basics. I don't know what they mean by basics, food, water, things like that. Well, that's exactly what people will do. History shows us that. And when the world gets to the point to where that choice is presented to a lot of people are going to take it. Most of the people will take it to keep their kids from dying. And then the world reaches a point, a low point, like I say, that the average person couldn't even foresee. Now, in my books, I have some pretty graphic scenes. As a matter of fact, there was a scene within, I think, the second chapter of my very first book that people have told me they could barely get past. But they did, and they were glad they did, and they ended up reading the whole series multiple times, because it's not all about that. Most of my books are about how to avoid ever having to deal with that. And it's not a, it's a series of novels. It's not like a book of lists or anything like that. I'll show them to you in a second, and I'll tell you how to get them if you want. Most of my books are about very positive preparing, okay? So that you don't have to be presented with these kinds of choices. It's always better to avoid a problem than to have to deal with it, right? It's like fights. It's always better to stay out of a fight than win one, except in certain situations. But there are certain situations that I think the average person can't imagine. And the scene that I just mentioned to you, like I say, that some people had a tough time getting through, but thankfully they did, because then they went on to enjoy the series and learn a lot. And there were other scenes like this. A number of people who have seen the worst in life told me, they said, man, that was great. You told it exactly like it is. And when a normal person is confronted with life at its worst, or people at its worst, they can't believe it. I've said, it was one of my basic tenets when I taught combatives in martial arts. I said, when you're attacked, or when you have a horrible situation presented to you suddenly, you have three enemies. You have confusion, you have fear, and then you have the situation or the enemy themselves, the attacker or the situation. And most people who aren't able and haven't had the experience of dealing with life at its worst, that's their first reaction is, this can't be happening. This cannot be happening. What can I do? There has to be a way out. There's always been a way to handle. There's always been a way to handle situations in life. Can't we talk this out? Can't we do this? Can't we? You shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. This is, the worst kind of people out there in the world are just they eat that stuff up. Your fear and confusion, and you're trying to deal with them and all this kind of stuff. It just empowers them. They love it. It's like a drug to them. Your fear is like, That's how they get their high. And in something even like the Maui incident, where I'm going to repeat this, I'm not repeating this to just be all sexy, because I mean, this kind of thing should not be seen as sexy by anybody. But even in Maui, again, 1 in 6 victims traded sexual favors for basics. And that's when they knew there was a world out there that somehow help could be coming from. There was a world that eventually help would be coming. But in the case of a collapse, whether it's a grid collapse, a cyber attack, or like in my books, a CME that takes out everything, society will collapse into an ethical and moral black hole, with the worst of society waiting at the bottom of that black hole, sucking in the better folks. And that's why I asked the question of you, and I suggest that you answer it honestly to yourself. What would you do to feed your kids, or to save your kids, or to keep your kids alive? Now, here again, I hear a lot of, talk is cheap. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'd do anything, having no idea what anything is. Right? The very same people that would say, well, people, when there's no food, they will do anything to feed their kids. Somehow, don't bring that around to themselves and ask themselves, would I kill? I mean, meaning you, would you kill to feed your kids? Would you offer sexual favors? Would you sell yourself? I mentioned this the other day. Would you sell yourself into slavery in order to survive? Or for your kids to survive, or your spouse? I would say a majority of people would. But here's the caveat. Do you want to? And the answer is hell no, right? That's why preparedness is so important. If those people out in Maui had been prepared, and I'm not going to get into this, people are going to come on, there was no way to prepare, it was a directed energy weapon, and blah, 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 blah. Stop it. When you live on an island, I'm just saying, but let me put it in a way that's not blaming the victim, okay? Because somebody goes, don't blame the victim. If they had preparations so that they didn't have to do that, their life would have been better. Everybody agree? Everybody agree, right? Okay. So that's the importance of preparedness. That's why you should be prepared. And like I always say, preparedness is personal responsibility. It is the ultimate responsibility and the ultimate irresponsibility. And it's up to you to be responsible for your own preparedness and the preparedness of those who depend on you, right? So the things that you do, the things that you plan, are you planning? Are you thinking about the things that can really, really happen? And I don't mean collapse of the fiat currency, which isn't going to happen, okay? A collapse of the banking system, which isn't going to happen. Whatever, okay? I'm not even going to go down through the whole list that everybody likes to be afraid of or tell you to be afraid of, okay? What if it all collapses? Because that is science tells us it's going to happen. That's regardless of whether it happens in the next year, 10 years, 50 years, your lifetime, your kid's lifetime, it will happen. And developing a preparedness lifestyle, not just being a prepper, stacking stuff up, I need more guns. but being a preparedness-minded person, a PMP, and establishing that pattern in your life to pass on to your children and your grandchildren. You know how many people we have that come on in the comments here and say, I was raised by parents who grew up in the Depression, and we carry on those lessons. Yeah, so was I. We carry on those lessons. Right. That's why you want to establish a preparedness lifestyle and pass it on to your kids and your grandkids and all that. You want to establish a intergenerational preparedness mindset, so that when it all does collapse, guess what? You could be like the people in my books. So now I'll tell you about this. Is, like I said, people have said this is the best series they have ever read. Many people, I mean hundreds of people have told me this, maybe thousands. The best post-apocalyptic book series, 7 novels they have ever read about preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything. The reversion, the revival, the renewal, on appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, hostages to fortune, and on wings like eagles. And I'm currently writing the 8th book, and the people on the Patreon channel know what the title is, and they've seen the book cover already, and it's probably coming out in September, hopefully. But this is a doctoral thesis on how to prepare and how to live, all wrapped up in a great story. I talk about all the horrible things that can happen. I talk about cannibalism, slavery, mass killings, and all this of what really would happen. But the main thrust are the good things about faith, family, community. It's about preparing for, surviving, and then rebuilding community after a total collapse. And it's a story of a family, and a family who was prepared, and as a result of their preparedness, was able to not only continue to live well after a total collapse of everything, but also help other people. And you should be thinking about that. And then rebuild. Okay. The way you get them, if you haven't read them, and you think that you might, and some people say, ooh, there's a lot of romance in there too. Yes, somebody asked me, are you a romance writer? There's some characters you're going to fall in love with. And there's some characters you're not going to like much at all. And most of them, you're going to say, man, I wished I lived. And people say, I wish I lived at Stonemont. Yeah, I know. Well, the way to get them, there's 2 ways you can get them. One through Amazon, links down below, and you can get them there at any time. A better way, if you don't mind waiting a little bit, is directly from me through our website, stonemont.us, and that link is down below. And if you do it through there, I get to sign each book for you. I get to write a note in each one for you. I stick in a business card for you. Okay, actually 2, so you can give one to a friend. You can get them involved in preparedness. Say, hey, here's a card from the guy that I watch on YouTube, and I've read all of his books, and you ought to watch him too. It's a great way to get other people involved. But I sign them for you. I write a little note in there to you in each of the books, and if you buy the whole set, well, if you order the whole set, which you cannot do through Amazon, you can do it through our website. You get a discount because we save money on shipping and handling and all that, and we pass that savings on to you. And then I toss in also a freebie from me to you, the Stonemont notebook. I'm not very good at this. Okay, yeah, but here's the thing. And I love it. I really love it when you do that. But you have to wait a little bit. We're trying to catch up on orders right now. I think we're just now fulfilling orders towards the end of May, because we have been slaughtered with orders the last couple of months. It's just been amazing. We've never seen anything like this. Thank the Lord for that. I thank Him all the time. But I think we're about orders that come in now, you're going to need to wait 3 to 4 weeks, something like that. That would be my honest projection. So if you're willing to wait, I hope you will do it that way. Because I love my relationship with my readers just like I do with my viewers. And when I can write your name in the book, dear to so-and-so, and write a little note, I feel like I know you a little bit, and have a relationship with you, and I love that. But however you do it, get these books. Read them. learn from them, realize that the realities of the world are far beyond, I mean, the realities of the bad ones, okay, are far beyond the ability of the normal person to even imagine. But try to imagine. I mean, don't let it consume you. You don't want to be, your whole life to be wound up in this stuff. But as you read my books, as you go through it, ask yourself, what would I do in this situation? What would I do? And I go into great detail the situation and the thought processes of people and all that. You're going to be absorbed in it, and I think you'll learn a lot. You'll enjoy the series. You'll learn a lot, and you might learn a little bit about yourself. So anyway, starting out with the question that we started with, or ending with the question we started with, what would you do to survive? And when you decide that, ask yourself, wouldn't it be better to prepare so that I don't have to do that? I think so. Okay. Well, think about that, guys. Have a good day. And remember, like we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Go out and have a great day. Up your preparedness plan, because it will improve your life now as well as preparing you for a downturn in the future. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.